Welcome to Let's Get Writing. I'm Kathryn Musseau. This is a show about writing, how writing happens, what motivates writers, and we're hoping that it's going to share ideas, that we're going to share ideas with you that will help you if you're thinking that you have a book, a poem, and maybe even a film in your mind that you want to create and bring to reality. And today, I have never had documentary film artists, I'm going to say, on my show, but I had the opportunity to invite a couple of gentlemen here who have just recently completed a project with the Association for New Canadians. And it's a 25-minute documentary film, and I wanted to get inside their heads to find out all about why they did it and how they did it. And it's all based in Newfoundland, and it's called Home, and it's stories of newcomers to Newfoundland and Labrador. So I can't forget Labrador, because that's a big part of their film too. So welcome to the set, Conor and Rodrigo. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Got to shake your hands. Yeah, don't always have filmmakers. So Conor McCann and Rodrigo Iniguez, yes. Correct. Yeah. Mexican name, but I'm getting my tongue around it. Tell me a little bit about yourselves. Conor, let's start with you.
I'm a broadcast journalist. For a long time, my background was in radio and then transitioned to print. But Rodrigo and I have been friends for a long time now. I've always had a passion for filmmaking and for documentary filmmaking in particular. So we've collaborated on a few things over the past couple of years, and this is our latest and our biggest project to date.
Well, I guess the journalism part would be what would probably draw you to a documentary format.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, and yourself, Rodrigo?
Well, I've been doing camera work for 5 years maybe, and I do documentary work with Conor and some marketing campaigns in St. John's.
In St. John's. Long way from home. It's home now, because let's talk about that. The project that we're here going to be discussing today is Home. Mm-hmm. And home being where you are. And in this case, you did look at how immigrants are adapting to our island and the challenges and so on that they've had. Just talk a little more about how that came up and why you chose that topic.
Well, when we were in university, we had both attended Memorial, and we had a pretty diverse group of friends in regards to where everyone came from, their backgrounds, and that kind of let us have a lot of conversations that we felt were really important around diversity, around what it means to make a home somewhere else, to move away, the experiences that you have, and the place of people coming to St. John's within that community. We realized that we were privy to those conversations based on our backgrounds and our friends, but not a lot of other people were. And we saw a discrepancy in how St. John's and Newfoundland is represented as a very culturally and ethnically homogenous place, when in fact it is becoming quite a multicultural hub in the Atlantic. So we started by creating a short series of videos called Unseen. That was picked up by the Overcast, an arts newspaper on St. John's. Sharing stories that were presented to us by people we interviewed from different backgrounds, and then contextualizing those stories, those differences, with St. John's, to give kind of a feel that this is a multicultural mm-hmm. city and a multicultural province, and it all kind of took off from there. Then we ran with the idea,
and it got bigger. Yeah. But actually you did, I just want to mention too, you did get an award from the International Business IBAC Association of Communicators, mm-hmm. which was a Pinnacle Award. You might have the correct name for it. Do you recall? It's a long name.
It is. It's a very long name. We are very thankful that some of our work received that award. That was with the university. We'd done mm-hmm. a project afterwards. So when we'd done this piece with the Overcast, it had been seen by a couple of the
Office of Recruitment.
Office of Recruitment, yeah.
Yeah.
Staff members who saw the potential in that project and the importance of interviewing students from different backgrounds, and so we collaborated on a project with them as well.
Yeah.
And that's where we received that award, which is really nice.
Well, it is nice. It's the IABC, the International Association of Business Communicators and anyone watching who's in the PR field knows that you know, they don't just give their awards out for shoddy work. I can assure you they don't. I mean, they're business communicators. That's what they specialize in. So you must have communicated very well through that project. And congratulations on that award.
Thank you.
Yeah. So okay, so we know now that I like that you brought that point up about St. John's, or about Newfoundland, because traditionally we've been pretty homogenous here, and we've been kind of isolated. That's, like you say, it's all changed. You know, people know where we are. Heck, we're on Broadway. Do you know, they're starting to know where we are, and we have a lot of tourists. People experience our culture, but we also are having people who move here, who are evolving our culture in a wonderful way. And so it's very nice that you were doing that. So what were some of the challenges for you, Rodrigo, with the filming on that project? Or, I mean, that was where you got your feet wet, I guess, when you first started with the university project?
Yeah, well, 4 years ago we did that thing for the Overcast, and that was our first video project ever, and you can tell we're still learning.
Yeah.
And then we took that job with the university, and our skills got, you know, we were producing about a video every week at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Following
And what was the length of the video?
each video was between 5 to 7 minutes, and we were filming 12 different students at the time.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was a very fast pace. We learned a lot on the go. And then we thought, well, we could probably do that project we did for the Overcast and just make it way better, make it bigger. And that's when we decided to contact the Association for New Canadians.
So you initiated the contact with them?
No, we both went into the office.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yep.
We just walked in,
Yeah,
said hello.
hey, come on, we love these stories.
Yeah.
This show is for people who are trying to do just what you did. So, I mean, you just walked in.
Well,
Knock, knock, knock. Hi, we're here. We want to do a project with you. Love it.
We've been thinking about ways, you know, in which to kind of get this project off the ground and people that we wanted to collaborate with. And obviously, the ANC has such a bank of resources as far as their contacts and who they help. Because the last thing we wanted to do was just approach random people and expect them to kind of go, oh, share your stories with us. So we sent them a kind of a pitch and, you know, see if they were interested in partnering. And they immediately were like, oh, like, come into the office, like, let's talk about this. So we cold called them, and they seemed really receptive, and then we just went and had a meeting, and I think we walked into that meeting like with the goal in mind and knowing what we were going to do.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, and you did accomplish it, because last night here in central Newfoundland, we at the Gordon Pinsent Centre for the Arts, we saw your film, and it was a great film, and I actually learned a lot from it about how immigrants and possibly refugees feel coming into our culture in ways that we can welcome them and understand what it's like for them. That film is also, I think, going to be made available here on the community channel for people to see. And, you know, it'd be nice to spread the word, because not just your you know, the fact that I'm talking to you today and delving into the doing of the project, but I don't want to miss the point that the actual end result, that film, is really informative and really amazing. I think it should be in all the schools. You know, I think it can start there.
Well, that
that's one goal.
Yeah.
The agency has to use it for educational purposes, and not just schools, but also workplaces that we're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, I think workplaces as well, because I think a lot of people don't always have that perspective.
Yeah.
So let's jump in there a little more. You now have been with the ANC, and you've got a clear vision of what you're going to do. So then what did you do?
Well, when we talked to them first April last year, 2018, and then the actual filming started November of 2018. So it was a long process of, you know, figuring the logistics, finding the people that were interested in talking to us, and then once we finally put everything together in those months, then we started filming in a matter of a week. In a matter of 10 days, we filmed in St. John's, Gander, Grand Falls, Lab City.
We did 5 days in Lab City, touched back in St. John's, and then immediately hit the road across the island.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was very quick.
So had you been up to Lab City before? Had you been to?
This was actually my first time ever outside of St. John's.
Well, so this was a whole learning experience, because in some ways, you know, you're an immigrant as well, a student, but you're experiencing a new culture. So it has to give you a perspective on things here too.
Absolutely. yeah, this project, not only did I learn a lot about movie making, but yeah, just the province itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you went first to Lab City.
Yeah.
And tell me why Lab City?
Well, we obviously wanted to have representation around the entire province, so getting up to Labrador was very important for us. I think we were initially slated to do Lab City and Goose Bay, but just through the rigmarole of production, it got cut back just to Lab City. But the two gentlemen we spoke with there, we interviewed there, were fantastic. It was an absolute privilege to get to sit down and talk to them and to spend time in Lab City, which I found to be one of the nicest parts of the province I've ever been to.
Interesting,
Yeah.
and I've yet to go there. So a lot of Newfoundlanders are on the island, and they haven't gone up to Labrador.
Yeah.
And it's not that uncommon, to be honest.
Yeah.
And if there's many fascinating things happening, but an interesting place for immigrants to go into. That is a culturally more isolated place. I shouldn't say culturally isolated. They have lots of culture, but it's just a more isolated place, how I would perceive it. So how were they finding it there? Were they happy to hear from you? Did they have a lot to tell you?
Oh, so much to tell us. Everybody that we interviewed, we have hours and hours of footage. And they were all telling us incredible stories, and everybody was happy. Everybody's happy living here. One of the persons that we interviewed in Lab City was telling us about how he opened a store to sell Filipino products, and how he was not only helping the local Filipino community, but also bridging between the Filipino community and the local community, because locals would come to the shop and want to learn about the Philippines and their food and culture and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, and that, I think when you, and I know what this feels like to have a lot of material. You've gone out and it's the excitement of filming, you're interviewing the people, Conor, and you're coming back each night, this is great, and, and then, as you say, you did it in a short period of time, so it was pretty exhilarating, I would imagine, and adrenaline pumping, we're going to get this done. Then you had all that material, and back you came to St. John's.
Yeah, well, the editing process was like 2 months probably.
The editing,
Always longer.
Yeah.
Quite often.
and that was going back and forth between
our producers
Yeah.
and us, and
our
sending
partners.
emails and different versions and different changes, iterations and whatnot, and just sitting around to go over the footage, watch it again, decide what makes the cut, decide what where it's gonna go, the order of everything. We sat down a few nights just to go over everything.
Well, did you go with an idea of what you thought it was going to be, and was it the same when at the end? We
had an idea of what we wanted going into it, but obviously when you work with partners, you also have to make space for what they'd like to see with the project and their vision as well. So when we went into it, we didn't think that it would take as much of an educational lean to it. We were picturing something very kind of a bit art house, to be honest.
Yeah.
But with our partnership with the ANC and with their desire to kind of bring this into the classrooms and bring this into places where people do really get to learn from it, we found the educational component was really important, and that was a great asset to have with it. So things like that are surprises. You don't think about them when you're pitching it or when you're just conceptualizing the project, but I think, if you're lucky enough to work with really good partners like we have, by the end results, everything's, falls into place really nicely.
Yeah, and this is just part of the industry, It's a team effort to make films, videos, It's almost impossible to do it just on your own.
You're right about that. Collaborative efforts in this, it's very unlikely that you wouldn't collaborate in some ways on a project like this. So what about the length of it? Did you have a preset length, or did it just happen based on what you kept?
Initially, it was going to be 15 minutes, but we had
50 or 15? 15. Okay.
But we had so much good stories, so much good interviews that we extended it to almost twice that length.
Yeah, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And again, they say that's one of the hardest things to do. What gets left on it's not on the floor anymore because everything's digital, but that's how it used to. A lot of good stories are left on the editing room floor, more or less. So do you have material left over from this project that you could use again, or would it be starting fresh again if you wanted to do part 2, for example?
Well, part of what we agreed to do is give the ANC the main 25-minute cut, and they also give them about 10 short clips for promotional purposes or shorter educational purposes. And a lot of those 10 clips is stuff that didn't make it to the main cut, right? So I don't know how much left we have really unedited.
Yeah. Well, how about the people that you interviewed? How were they comfortable? Because they're immigrants. How did you gain their confidence to make them feel comfortable?
We were very much, we took the comfortability very important in this, because we were very aware of the fact that the stories we're probably going to be hearing were going to be difficult or challenging, and we didn't want to come off as just, putting people in a spotlight and kind of saying, go tell us these intimate stories. So for the interviews that we did in St. John's, where we had the luxury of doing this just by, the size of it, we set up pre-interviews with people just to meet them, to get to know them, and to give them an opportunity to get to know us as well. And that was really helpful in building that comfort and building that trust, which I think is instrumental in getting stories that are a bit intimate, and that people need to be in a certain headspace and need to have a certain trust in order to share that. But when it came to stories on the road, it was very kind of run and gun, and we relied heavily then on our partners with the ANC to kind of do that work beforehand, to kind of talk to their clients, explain what was going to happen, explain the purposes. That that takes a lot of trust, but it certainly paid off.
Yeah, and I think to go back to what you asked earlier on, what vision we had or what expectations we came with. I think we focused a lot more on the approach to the interview process to make it comfortable, and then hopefully focusing on making everybody in these interviews comfortable with us, hopefully get good material out of it.
And that is the thing, because many times when you put a camera in front of people, they tend to just, the answers get a lot shorter, and they're more self-conscious about what they say, because they know that what they say is going to go far and wide. So I think anyone that works in this line of work, or realizes that gaining the element of comfort with your guests or the people you're interviewing is so critical. And and it's something that I think indeed they do have to trust you, because the equipment's there.
Yeah.
It's there, and they know they're being recorded. Did they want to see the video back? Were they comfortable letting you go off with it, or did they want to see what it was like? Did they ask you that?
So far, everybody was really happy with it. The interviews that have managed to make it to the screenings we've had so far, they're very happy to see what it turned out to be.
Yeah.
And I think even when we did the interviews day of, nobody really wanted to look at it.
They didn't. No, I was just curious. Sometimes people do. They want to see, how did I do? Did I sound okay? And so on.
Yeah. And we offered, did you want to, because we took a lot of sort of portrait footage, not necessarily interview footage, and I would offer, would you like to see if you're happy with what we have so far? And they were like, no, that's fine.
And that is the other response. No, never want to see it. It's one or the other. But that's great. So you traveled around a good variety, and I think having seen the actual documentary, it's you hit on the points that prior to seeing it, I was thinking would probably be there. Issues like adapting to our culture, the language, the uniqueness of understanding English as a start, but then the dialects of our province in particular can also be challenging to people who even speak the language at times. And rapidly, sometimes people speak very quickly here. It's like anywhere. You can go to Ireland, it's the same thing. Once you're comfortable with the language, it's like bang, bang, bang. So that the language came out. I think the sense of wanting a better home for their families, I think that was where my heart was pulled a lot last night when I watched the film. Just to understand, and I came away understanding a whole lot better the process and what it must feel like for immigrants coming into our province. And I don't think we often stop to think about it.
Well, I think part of what we wanted to do here is to change most of the conversation around immigration right now is about arriving to a new country or leaving a conflict zone and things like that. But nobody's talking about the leaving process once you come to this new country, right? No one is discussing the adaptation, the resources, the language, the jobs, right? And in the documentary, we try to, we portray for a few moments why people come to Canada, and then we focus on their lives in Canada more so than they're coming to.
Mm-hmm. The actual, because that's when, when you're moving, when you're getting here, there's a lot that takes place at that point. When you actually get here, you become more stationary. You become part of a community, and you have to find, and I love the name home. It has to become your home. And any of us who have lived away and traveled and so on, when it's that feeling that it's not home. You often hear people say, I want to go home. And many Newfoundlanders say that. They're living, and there's always this compelling draw to come back to the island. I want to go home. So I thought that was a great title. Was it one that just came to you obviously, or did you have a debate where there's several titles?
It was one that, through all the parties involved in the project, we landed on, and we thought it was best suited.
Yeah.
And it was. It absolutely was. Now, so the Association for New Canadians are taking the film around the province and have the promotional. Do you also, tell us a little bit about that relationship with the association and your partnership. Do you also have rights to the film, or is it really their film now?
Oh no, yeah, they're so open for us to do as much as we want with it. We've been talking about taking it through the film festival circuit in Atlantic Canada and maybe furthermore.
Maybe competitions?
Yeah, and they're willing for us to, take it into different directions if anything is necessary.
Which is good for them and good for you.
Of course.
Yeah. And going into it, were there any challenges with creating the partnership with an association? Because you mentioned partnership, and that generally is where contracts come into place and so on. How was that part of the logistical part of it for you?
We, for quite a while, we had sort of like good faith agreements with the ANC, and this is back kind of in April when we were, just getting underway. And when we did get the funding that was required for the projects, that's when obviously contracts come in.
Especially because everybody realized that the scope was going to be way greater than initially discussed, because people loved the idea and they wanted it to be done properly and bigger. And that's when signatures and papers started to be thrown around.
Sure.
It never felt like all of a sudden it got really binding or constrictive. There was still a really good relationship that we had, especially with our two contacts within the outreach office that we worked with throughout the entirety of this project.
And how about, did you feel that you could carry your vision through? Was that strongly carried through, what you saw from the beginning and right to where you had your film produced?
Yeah. I think we're happy with the final product, and it's very close to what we initially thought. We had to adapt to make everybody happy and make sure that the entire team is happy with what we were creating, which is very important.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm satisfied.
I mean, they give us quite a wide berth of freedom.
Yeah.
To go out into the province, and just film and create and do this work.
Yeah.
So
a lot of trust.
Yeah, and that was very valued.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think ultimately that's what makes a better project.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So where to now? What are you going to do now?
Well, we have
a big question.
We have a few projects, cooking, researching. Yeah.
Is it going to remain in the documentary genre?
Oh
yeah,
certainly.
Yeah.
That's the journalist is just in you, Connor, and it's not going to go away.
We can't shake that.
Yeah, that's the dream.
The dream.
Remain there.
Yeah, similar projects, longer projects even.
Yeah.
I think we've got a couple that we're thinking a return to sort of a 5 to 7 minute length would be nice, just to kind of take the skills that we've gotten to this point and to create these really concise, neat, short packages.
Yeah.
Because that's a really great way to reach a lot of viewers who might not have time to sit down and watch, 25 minutes, let alone a whole feature length. But we've also got projects that, we'd like to take well past the 30 or 45.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of working out how those are going to come to light, because the longer it is, just the more moving parts there are.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
the more money it requires,
Yeah.
and which
Yeah.
is a huge thing, of course, funding.
Oh,
Finding
Yeah.
the money.
Yeah, finding the money. But you know what? It's exciting. As I said to you before we went on air, this is the best type of work you could do because it's not like work at all. It's so if it's what you love, it's not at all
Yeah.
like work. How about if people want to reach out to you? Do you have contact information you could share with us?
Sure.
Oh, I mean, email is the
Okay,
best.
let's have
Usually
those
the best way to
emails,
do it.
please.
Myself, Connor, CONORJFMCCANN@gmail.com. That's my go-to for contact.
Yeah.
And Rodrigo.
My email would be rodiniguez.b@gmail.com.
Okay, well, we'll have those on the
I have to
screen
write
now.
something down.
we will do that for sure, but because there may be people who do want to ask you questions.
Yeah.
We've gotten a little inside the project and inside your minds and your process. And if there was one thought you'd leave us with, this is a hard question. You have about 20 seconds there now to give us a closing thought.
Closing thought.
A closing thought.
Oh, yeah.
This was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And we would love to do things like this with whomever contacts us.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, our passions are for telling stories that we feel are really important to tell and to hear in the province, and we'll continue to do that with as many like-minded people as we possibly can find.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming in and sitting down with me. It's been a pleasure to meet you and a pleasure to see your film, and I'm going to be waiting for what comes next. So let's get writing. Let's get filming. Thank you so much.
Thank you.